Hey there, friends. Thanks for joining us tonight for Healing Conversations. My name is Mastriani-Levi, and I'll be joined shortly with my co-host, William Brown. Tonight we're going to do another healing conversation. And like all the other conversations, these are not planned. We jump into them. We think about a topic that feels relevant for us throughout the week, and we kind of just say, okay, let's talk about this. And we have just a couple minutes before the show that we kind of go over some touch points, but overall, we never know how this is going to go. And it's really important to us that our message is a healing message. It's a message of unity. It's a message of love that will land on the right ears and hopefully be important and thought-provoking. And we invite you to comment in the comment section and join us and help us with your thoughts as well so that we can speak to things that you're finding relevant. So tonight we're going to be talking about pain in marginalized communities, and there are an awful lot of them. I think that the one that's standing out predominantly right now is the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, but we definitely will jump into speaking on women or whatever other subsector we feel that we can speak to. When William threw this topic at me, or sent it to me, I should say, I initially felt that I would just be kind of holding space much more than having a ton to contribute. Because when I think of myself as a Caucasian woman in America, I feel that I have a lot of things allowed to me, even though women are very often marginalized. My life as a woman here in the United States is different than other women in the United States, and also different from women in other countries and other customs where they don't have the same equivalent level. So I just really want to be able to offer the contribution of listening, deep listening, but also to offer just a platform, because I think so often topics are discussed like the Black Lives Matter movement that are just blacks speaking with blacks and whites. Obviously, I have no way to personally know the feeling of being in that marginalized community and really to embody it. But so often it's like preaching to the choir, and I want to be able to offer another level of being present. So I'd like to offer William to join me, and we'll start another healing conversation, a difficult conversation possibly, around pain in marginalized communities or marginalized communities in general. Thanks and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. This is you handled it well. I mean, you spoke to a lot of different areas in there, and I think the messiness of conversations, right? For me, there's a large part of my interaction with things. There's a saying that says, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Sure.
And sometimes when I look at my communication, I look at this, I want it to be neat and clean and, rainbows and all that other kind of stuff and all the nice words. And when it's not that, it's like there's something wrong, right? And it's, I either did something wrong or somebody did something wrong. And I think the more that for myself that I can come into a conversation that may be difficult with nobody being wrong, right? But we're just sharing what's coming up, then, I can have the listening. And so when I thought of, our time together this week and marginalize, just start coming up. And, as I do my other show, usually things come up to me in one word, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, oh, okay, what's this all about? And then, I thought, what is the pain? What is the pain in being marginalized? What is, the question of is there, quickly went away, because there is. There's, for me, it was a feeling of, the pain of disappointment, the pain of not being seen, the pain of not being heard, the pain of not mattering, right? So just really dealing with that, and not wanting to feel like I was, that I guess that I was going to resent things, right? They're going to get a level of resentment, because for me, anytime I get, my emotions get ahead of me. That's how I frame it, right? There's like no good. There's no good, because I can't process it. I can't see it. I can't work through it. So I have to, stay in front of my emotions so I can go from there. So just really exploring, embodying being marginalized, and what that feels like, and how I've been living with that, and just how other people are living with it, and just see if it shows up the same way.
Okay. So let's start to frame this up so we can kind of understand what we're talking about.
Right.
First and foremost, I feel like this is kind of a redundant question, but do you feel marginalized?
It's like at one time, it depends on what label is speaking, right? Right?
Yeah.
It is one, or how I see myself. So in the completeness of myself, I do not feel marginalized.
Mm-hmm.
But in segments of myself, I do. I feel extremely marginalized.
Do you want to talk about which subsegments those are?
I think, as a Black male, so, I usually have labels separately, but it is, within this is, it's coupled together for a reason, because I believe my Blackness label has a meaning for some people, and then my maleness coupled together, 10 X's that, kind of, creates this image of, I don't want to say fear or something, or just there is this, I'm trying to, I don't know why this example is coming up for me, but I'll just say that. Do you know how when you probably not you, that you've done something wrong and that you're wrong? It's like, yeah, that was really a terrible thing to do.
Sure.
But people don't acknowledge that you did it, but at any point that they can like call you on it, and you're gonna have to own it, or lie, or something like that. Mm-hmm. In some cases, and I think that's got a little foggy there, but in some cases, that's how I feel as a Black man, is that we've done you wrong for so long, and that we've kind of like, we good, right? Or no, but we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to really kind of understand. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't to you. It was somebody,
Let's stop for 1 second and reframe who the we is.
Right. Who's what we, and it's beyond the white male, right? Mm-hmm. It's the society that the white male created.
Yeah.
And so look, how I see it, as even all of the flaws and all of the brutality of, our country, the ideal was to have a better place for my family, my life, or something. So, mm-hmm. The roads of hell are paved with good intentions, right?
Right.
But, so it's how white men created a society, and on the back of, a group of people that's created this marginalization.
Mm-hmm.
There was a feeling of it. There was a need to be marginalized. This group needs to be marginalized, or in some cases, be dehuman. Use
Yeah.
right. It's like, hey, the reason why I can treat you like this is because you're not human, right? You're
Yeah.
something. You're something less than. And I think, and that's why in some cases I don't really embrace the Black label, is because after reading a lot of Brene Brown books, that if there's dehumanizing language, if
For sure.
and I think the race label is dehumanizing language.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I call you a white person, or if I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Black person, then it's, it's not it's not reality. It's not even real. So I can, then I can do all the other things within that. So I think because of the white male created a system on the back of another people,
Mm-hmm.
feeling that is, was the right thing or the best thing to do, or what, like I said, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I would think if you enslave people for over 400 years, you would think someone would think it was a good idea, right? Right? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just, type of thing, even though it was, a horrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
But there is an awareness of, this was not, this is not the right thing to do. But now this person is quote unquote free to maybe seek revenge or retribution because of the system and everything like that. So there is this. I want to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it's painful for me, and it could be deadly for me. I mean, look, the fact that when I was growing up and 100 pounds, soaking wet, watching the Roots series, right?
Right.
I was angry, and that,
Mm-hmm.
that's Hollywood brutality. Even the most brutal Hollywood brutality doesn't, I believe, in my opinion, doesn't come close to the level of brutality that my people have endured.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
I would venture to say that for a lot of Caucasian people, that is the depth of their experience of what it could have been like.
right,
Like they might not even be able to venture to think that it would be worse than how they've seen it in Hollywood production.
right. And so, I think having that feeling that almost the marginalization is to kind of, I want to say, make them feel better. I don't know if that's the right word,
It could be. It
right?
could be. Yeah.
It's kind of, look, if I marginalize you and I marginalize what happened, and I I
Don't
just
have to
marginalize
face
the
it.
whole damn thing. I don't have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And then I don't also have to own my part.
Right.
And I can definitely understand people of my generation saying, listen, I didn't have anything to do with what happened 400 years ago.
Right.
And I don't want anything to do with what they did because it feels so wrong to me. And it feels like me trying to connect to something that is not in alignment of who I am.
Right.
And yet I do know that part of the reason that there is this marginalization is because I can sit here and say what I just said.
Right. Great. I mean, it's really. there was someone, I can't remember, who said it, recently, that the marches and some of the rioting or the unrest is not really rage, right? It's not. I mean, it is basically almost a reflection of, it's just kind of a shadow of everything that's really happening, that's really going on. If rage, or if the level of pain endured by a people was really seen, that, yeah, I don't think anybody could handle, can imagine
And
that.
I can honestly say that in as much as we want to be active learners and listeners and empathizers,
Right.
to the extent that we're capable to, we are not, and when I use the word we here, I'm speaking of anyone who doesn't feel that they're living in a very marginalized environment or reality. We are really not capable, even if we just sit there and just like, teach me.
Right.
I want you to teach me to feel what you're feeling. I want to take this pain from you and carry some of it. I want to change, because we all have the ability to create change.
Right.
But still being like, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of, someone asked me recently about, having, difficult conversations with my non African Americans and Black, friends. And, I use the word, I'm fatigued by it. I mean, it just kind of, but fatigue is not the right word.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a closer word for me is I'm weary. And how I've heard, I don't know if you've used that word or if you've kind of unpacked
it
that
lands
for
differently
yourself.
in my body.
Yeah, it is everything. It's like beyond tired, right? It's like, it's beyond, it's weary takes on your whole being.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is, for me, it's like, I understand and look, there's a lot of this conversation that I don't believe it's an ignorance problem. I don't believe education will solve this problem. I don't. That's just what I believe. I believe this is more of a belief repatterning, issue. It is, it's a, there are some things that I believe, not because that I've learned, it's just because I heard it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, I guess that's what it is. It's things that I get from my parents, things that I've heard from, siblings and people around me. And until I really question myself and say, hey, do you really believe that? And it's like, well, yeah, I guess. And it's like, do you? And it's like, well, no, I don't believe that totally. And I think the conversation around how we treat each other, how we marginalize each other, it's a belief. If there is a prevailing belief that certain races are less than, and that certain genders are less than, right? Then it shows up. Our belief, dictates our actions, and our actions are belief, and all that other kind of stuff. So when I have said many times that the system isn't broken, it is working as designed. We need to redesign the system.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like there are mechanisms within our Constitution that will cause us to update the system, but I believe most of our politicians, our current politicians, don't have the political will to do a constitutional amendment to kind of, I don't want to say solve our problems, but get closer to dealing with how we govern each other. But that is it's going to be in really tackling our beliefs. And I think until we really say, and I did some work about masculine and feminine energy about a year ago. And, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I felt that there were too often I was showing up in feminine energy. And that there was something wrong with that, because, I'm a guy, right? So I should have this masculine energy, and there's something missing. And I really had to look at my beliefs around feminine and feminine energy. It's like, why is it less than? Who told you that feminine energy is less than masculine? And it's like, and it was like, whoa, okay, it's not. And it's like, and it has taken me, a year in some months to really embrace that I have both, right? And that I can flow in and out of those energies, and I don't feel like that I have to marginalize any of those in any of that way. But it started with me really looking at my beliefs. And so that's why I feel that until we really, get to a place to own what we believe and not what Meemaw or Peepaw said, right? But what I believe, what what has, caused me to kind of be present to today in my life. And then I will stop marginalizing people and myself.
Do you have other examples? Just a few minutes ago, you were talking about belief patterns and where people have questioned you. Do you believe that? And you said yes. And then actually, I don't. Besides the masculine and feminine, are there other belief patterns that have been shattered?
Look, I think the white male belief pattern. I mean, look, I grew up in a Christian home, single mom. She loves everyone, right? But I was told, many times from her and other people in my family, don't trust Whitey, and Whitey is mainly, white men, right? So that was just, that was like basic, right? And so, so that was the belief, even though I had teachers that were white males, and I had white males that I had to deal with in other places. I had white male friends, or kind of quote unquote friends. It was like before Facebook friends, where they're not really friends, but there were friends. There was this in my mind. I had to, I want to say, be on guard for how close I was with, with white guys, because at any point that they could, I don't want to say switch sides, or kind of change up, and you can find yourself in really, difficult situations. And so I had to really put that belief aside and kind of go, hey, there are people, there are some human beings that show up this way and that are not. It is not because of the color of their skin that causes, this type of behavior. And, and like I said, I'm not ratting anybody out, but there are still some people within my family that questions my thinking on that.
Yeah.
Belief.
That hasn't gone away.
Right.
That hasn't gone away, just like systemic racism has been passed down. Definitely, where you would hear things kind of just thrown. Now they're thrown around oftentimes just jokingly, but the fact that they're still allowed as jokes means it still exists on one level or another. Any sort of racist comment that
Right.
is still a racist comment.
Right.
And, yeah, so it can definitely, the fear of what this will do from this rage, and the fear from what this will do from this rage, and just
Right.
the kind of this ingrained beliefs of, yeah, even some of my kids' friends, parents who, African American friends that are just like, yeah, my parents have traditionally been pretty not trusting of Caucasian people, kind of rightfully so in my opinion. But like, how do I continue to provide an environment where they feel safe to send their kids to my house, that
Right.
I'm not going to, you said, what was the term, something could turn and that person could turn on you, or something like
Right.
that,
Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, look, there's a conversation that, I had with my son, when, when he was in high school, and he, found, I guess he was smoking, right?
Mhm.
And I caught, we had the conversation after, and I told him what I didn't want to happen in my house. And, it wasn't the cigarettes that you find in the corner store. But I told him point blank, I was like, look, we don't have the race conversation around here. We just kind of talk about how we respect and ourselves and other people and everything like that. And so, but here's a reality that I want you to get. That if you get caught out in the woods smoking with your buddies, um, they may be seen as, kids just doing something stupid. You um, may be seen as the criminal that caused all of this behavior, and will be treated totally different. You're just this punk kid that has gotten these other kids some weed and kind of cause their problems in their life. And it's like, um, I don't care where it all came from, but it will quickly not turn into, kids.
They won't be your allies in the
Right.
moment that the police show up, and
Right.
that's worrisome. And then
Right.
when we think about the amount of, I don't even know if we want to go into the criminal justice system and the amount of prisons that are filled and the percentages that they're filled with. But when you look at just the dichotomy between people sitting in jail for life for possessing a dime bag of marijuana, as
Right.
opposed to places where it's legalized and primarily Caucasian people showing shelves and shelves of marijuana that they've grown at or for a dispensary. And just like, how, okay, each state its rules, but still, how can, I would venture to say, even in the states where it's legal, if there was any sort of infraction and there were people of mixed races, still the person of the African American race would probably be the first one to go down
Right.
if the police were involved. And that's really, really, it speaks to how sad the diversity is, and the, I think just the very basic conversations that if you
Right.
get stopped by the police,
Right.
I was always taught, well, you just, you go into your glove box, you get all your stuff ready, you're moving around in the car, as opposed to the conversation that most of my friends that are people of color, whether it's Black, Asian, or whatever, keep your hands on the steering wheel, you narrate every move that you're going to do, and still,
Right.
how many deaths have we witnessed, or
Right.
not witnessed, but been told of, or have
Right.
been filmed?
Right. There is, it's kind of turned and because of the camera, it has been turned into anything. I can remember, a few years ago, um, the police cams, right? The dash cam, or, other things were instituted to kind of defer, right, behavior. And it's almost like, and I don't want to be trivial about this, but it's almost like, reality TV. It's like you see the cameras and you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so the cameras are not deterring anything. It's just
Mm-hmm.
showing what's there. It's
And
like
it's always
people,
interesting how they stop working when something really horrible has happened as well.
right.
The
But there
body
was something
cams, the
that,
dash cams.
right, it was horrible before it stopped, but it just got, right.
Right.
But it's still, you can see where this is going. And and like I said, and that's why I believe that it is more of, I don't want to say everybody needs to be brainwashed or kind of unlearn things, but it's so knee deep in our beliefs. It's so, I was talking to my adult kids. We talk to them weekly, twice a week, and in one part of the conversation earlier this week, and we were talking about the Confederate flag, and one of my kids said, the argument on the side of saying it's a part of our history and all that other kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff, and how that is disproven. And I said, because this is what I believe. And so here's the challenging part, about this, is that the reality is it is a part of all of our history. And so, but it doesn't have to be a part of our present or our future. But for us to act like it's not a part of our history and try to like erase it, we're not helping.
Mm.
And the more that we really understand not just what was done under that flag, but why it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Because, people have done horrible things and marginalized people without the flag.
Yeah. Let's
Right?
just put a little bit of timeline around that. The
Right.
Confederate flag only represented about 5 years.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
the band Nirvana lasted longer than 5 years. Just put it in
Right.
proportion there, right? So people were enslaved so much longer than that. And the heritage that people claim that they're perpetuating is a heritage that supported the enslavement of people.
Right. Right. And so, yeah, so I am not saying, see, I believe that what happens a lot on these conversations is that we are having two conversations here. Heritage and history is not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I think there's a lot of people, and like I said, I'm going to be offending the black label people tonight. But no, there's a lot of people, myself included, that grew up in the projects of an inner city project, that they believed or they thought of the projects as their heritage.
Mm.
And it was like, no, it's just, for me, it was like, no, this has nothing to do with my heritage. This is everything to do about my current living situation.
Mm.
And I think that is the misguided thing of the flag, is that it has nothing to do with their heritage, but everything to do with a mindset of people, of how they were living.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that when you basically crash things down into this history and heritage conversation, then you can justify doing and not doing things.
Mm.
And so, it's like I said, it's two different conversations. And so that's why I can say that the Confederate flag is a part of all of our history, but it's none of our heritage.
And the question is why we are continuing to perpetuate that specific point in history. Why are we identifying so deeply with that part of our history that we need to continue to have that kind of flag still flying? What
Yeah.
supports?
Look, I think there's a conversation that I had today about Remember. It's a rebroadcast, but I think there is some nostalgia. I mean, there's even parts of last year, even though 2019, there's a lot of difficult moments in 2019 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in comparison to 2020, oh, I look back at 2019 like it was one, it was the best year ever, right? Type of thing. And so there is this, it's like the further away that we get away from things, there is this nostalgia that kind of takes over, and then this turns into folklore, then turns into oppression for for people, right? Because you have to protect your folklore. And it's like, and so we kind of convince ourselves that it really wasn't that bad,
Mm.
or this is why it happened. And it is something that I don't want. I want to honor what's going on in my life now, honor what I've been through, but don't get it to the place where I am reminiscing to the fact of that I'm losing sight of my reality. And I think that's what the Confederate flag and the monuments is all about. It's like, dude, you're misremembering,
Mm.
those years.
Yeah.
And it's because, look, and that's why I believe shame and blame can't be a part of healing conversations.
Mm.
Because if you shame and blame someone, you are going to have them. Well, I'll speak for myself. When I shame and blame myself, then I get into a defensive mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'll beat myself up for a little bit, but then it's like, shit, I'm not that bad. Right.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's like, now you've gone too far now. Right. And then it's like, and then then it gets out of whack. And it just really asks me to really leave everything in perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm remembering that there is a theory, and I believe this is true, that memories change every time we remember them.
Right. I
That
heard that this week, right?
they're updated according to how our perspective shifts and changes. So if there were memories of people who actually lived in the Confederate time and they had some sort of nostalgia that they built around the good old cotton days when they were having high living, or whatever the story is that they told themselves. And I don't mean to be derogatory in any way by throwing around that story. But then when it passes the next generation, when that's died, what is actually being, it's a told story, it's a memory, it's like the telephone game, and it's still, my issue with the Confederate flags and all of these statues of Confederate generals is that they're being glorified somehow when they're lifted up on a podium. And why should we be walking around in cities of people who really, really were big supporters of the defamation of other people, not only in name, but in person?
It's like what is this? I'm trying to read. It's not consolidation. It's something like it's like a compromise. That's what it is. It is like most of the times when I read U.S. history, it seems like there's a lot of compromises to that marginalized people weren't in benefit of, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, we can't have slavery, but you can have this type of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, type of thing, and it's like, oh, that's still bad, right? It's like,
Right.
and it's like, okay, so we're gonna deal with that until people bitch and moan about that, and then it's like, okay, now we'll have a compromise again until all that kind of stuff. And I think I have been really embracing the social theories. And I have been kind of unpacking the conflict theory, because I think that's where we are right now. And it's basically, we've gotten to a place where there's just conflict because um, our agreements are out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we just don't agree with anymore. And it's like you have non-negotiables on both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this constant clash. And so the only way to get past this or get through this way of being is is a level of compromise, but a level of agreement. Something has to happen to
Mm-hmm.
cause agreement. And so I think the difficulty about where we are right now, because a lot of the conflicts are around the marginalized, right? The agreements are not just we'll never do it again, but the agreements are putting things into place to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of our lack of political will, in my opinion, that we cannot, we're not, that's gone too far. And
Mm-hmm.
and what it's going to cause, I believe, is this: it's going to ratchet up. I've been working on my project that I'm going to be starting next year, um, about everything is possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Project, and a part of my opening statement, around the election time, or around that, is that there's a number of people that believe that if one person wins, um, that all their problems are going to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And the other group believes that if this person wins, that it's, tyranny is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because of those extreme views of our reality,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have, I don't want to say we don't have a chance, but it's almost like we're setting ourselves up for an explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the only way that we can avoid that is to really seek this higher understanding, this enlightenment, this saying this never again. And I think that's what the everything is possible, that in spite of what I believe is coming,
Mm-hmm.
because we have created it. This has been years in the making. We've been we're, um, and, I'm editing myself. I was like, this country was founded on marginalizing people, right? Destroy, it's like in the DNA,
Right.
right? Because we needed to, and I say we without, because I'm a part of the we now. This is my country. This
Mm-hmm.
is my, and so, and I take the credit and the blame for all of this. And so the more that we're able to identify and recognize that, until we not just identify or aware of who is marginalized, but change the way and reduce the level or eliminate the need to marginalize groups in each other. I think this is a wheel that we will stay on.
I agree. As you were talking, I was kind of like going back in my mind and trying to figure out, I think there's lots of places where this started, but how does it get perpetuated? And just kind of thinking about, what if you were, just a wee baby just born into a family on a plantation? There's a definite division of what side you're going to be on according to which family you're born into, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much, if you're just growing up and, having what were probably called workers or help or whatever they were called in order to euphemize what they were actually being used as, it just became that they were the help that was available, and yet all the angst of realizing what being the help, hired or otherwise, embodies, and then being a wee baby born to the help, and please don't hear me.
I totally got it. That's how. Look, we are there. There's one of the most. It was one of those moments where I can laugh. I laughed to keep from crying, and I haven't said this too often, but here's the story. I went to Jamestown with my kids when they were young, and we were walking through Jamestown, and there was a multimedia theater thing, and you can kind of hear the stories and all that other kind of stuff. And they were telling the story of how hard it was, and and how they were concerned about some people not making it through the winter, until they got some help. And it was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's what you're telling people who come through Jamestown, that you just got some help. You got some people to help you.
It's a real euphemism,
it's
right?
Like, wow, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and that's in their mind, and from the stories or from the information, that's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
We had to train the help. We had to get the help. We had to.
I can imagine the wet nurse help. God knows how much, and then possibly like these young babes loving the help, feeling the nurturing.
And I just something just came to me in connection to police brutality. There is, because I was thinking about help, because you look at the police for help, right?
Supposedly.
But we being African Americans, we know what help really is. So I think in our DNA, we are suspicious of help. Because just the language that we were told, and how it was, and how it was introduced to us. And like I said, I need to, that just came from nowhere, but it feels like it's way beyond how people see us, right? It's the language that was used to defend their treatment.
Euphemize the dehumanization.
Right.
I'm going, like, immediately my brain went to this Mr. Rogers quote of like, when, and I'll botch it, but I'll get the general thing. You know how I am. But that his mother, he turned to his mother and was like in this emergency situation, and she said, always look for the people who are trying to help. There will always be people who are trying to help.
Right.
That's a really tricky thing because, we want to assume. I know that I was definitely brought up, when you're in elementary school, that all of these service people are brought through to show that they're good and that they're the helpers and they're the ones that we call on. And now with so much of that, I think that there's a lot of also non-African American people who are having a huge amount of suspicion suddenly come up on what is helpful and what is helping and who are the helping people in emergency situations. Who are the ones who are coming and showing up with love?
Right. Yeah, I think the one thing and the many videos, documentations that I've seen of brutality and just I don't know. There's a lot of it that I can't explain. I was just struck on how there was this void of compassion, of de-escalation, or just kind of concern, or just trying to. I mean, even I have been in very tense situations. I was almost in a race war. That's another conversation, right? But even in that moment of this, if someone doesn't say something, or if someone doesn't kind of not say something here, this will escalate really quickly to a place that then there's just no return. That even in my disappointment or frustration, there was something within me that says, hey, are you going to do this, right? Are you going to allow this to happen? And then there is just like, no, this makes no sense, and let's just kind of do that. And the fact that people are getting paid to be the help, right? Right? And don't have that for whatever reason, compassion level to realize that, hey, I am the authority, not just to get control of this, but to bring compassion and can bring order and to bring, sense. And, because, I've heard many times that the most dangerous places are, domestic violence places, because there's like so many emotions all over the place. But when it turns out that sometimes the most dangerous place is, a black man in a cop on a road somewhere, or in a, and it's like, no matter what happened or didn't happen, it just got dangerous because just of the elements that are together.
Dynamic.
And it's just like, where's the help, right? And I think it's like I said, there's the healing in this conversation of the marginalized for me. Yes, there's compassion. Yes, there's yes, there's love, and there's understanding, but there is just there has to be an awareness that this is not okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that in some cases we are so familiar about this behavior. And even when we're disappointed, and every once in a while we kind of say, yeah, this sucks, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't say it too loud because we might cause, we might lose our jobs, or we might whatever. there might be repercussions for really telling people how we feel about something in our marginalized state, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, I said something, I posted something a while ago, but I was like, we marginalize people and then we judge them for living marginalized lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, not only do you put me in this position where I feel and feel less than, but then you're going to kind of make that the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? Gaslighting? Is that what that is? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not the problem, you're the problem, right? It's like, no, you're the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just going from there.
That dehumanization.
Hmm.
I continue to think about this word, the help, and where, when we hear the Thanksgiving story that's so often told in history books in elementary school to kids of how we helped the Native Americans, and we all know exactly what we shared with them. That was probably just disease, and we did a lot more taking, but we still perpetuate this story of somehow helping them.
Right.
And I'm wondering where today we create justifications and still use the label of helping people. I remember speaking to what you were saying before, seeing a picture of an African American girl holding a sign that said, "You make fun of us because, oh goodness, because our dads or we grew up without dads. Well, if you'd stop putting them in jail, they'd be around to be our fathers."
Wow.
And I think, when you know the percentages and where have we created a system where we're helping, we're giving them a helping hand. Are we giving them welfare? That's help, but is it actually limiting and keeping them stuck in that marginalized community?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we actually use the word help? Where they were once help, but now we're helping them, but that help doesn't seem to look
Right. Right.
very kind and loving.
And I think more than look like, it doesn't feel like. You know how you can tell when someone says they're helping, and it's like, this doesn't feel like help.
Yeah. There's the non-help, and then there's the anti-help that's still called help.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I didn't realize how long we have gone. I hope. Is there any? It's like I was going to say, is there any healing in this? Do you think? I know, because this isn't just one conversation. Like, I get it, and I get within these conversations,
almost every week on one level,
right,
right?
right, and I don't, I don't, in no way do I want to have people feel that we have all the answers or anything like that. It's just willing to just have, just have the conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I think within the conversation we can find healing.
For sure.
And I think really exploring, help. Maybe that's a word that's going to show up on my morning show, right? But it is just really, I have questioned why I don't ask for help. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think it's a lot deeper than, than I thought it
Right.
was before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
As I'm listening to you, I think there's a few kind of takeaways that came up for me and things that we had kind of discussed even before the show. First and foremost is continuing to acknowledge not where people are only labeled as marginalized, but where they are still dehumanized on some
right.
level. when you hear about homeless people in the wintertime freezing to death. When you hear about addicts who such and such has happened to them. Where have we somehow dehumanized things where people are suffering from mental illness or other? Where have we created subsectors in order to make ourselves feel better about ourselves? I think just really kind of shifting and bringing that focus on, oh shit, here's a place that I did it and I didn't even realize that I did it.
Right.
Being willing to get super honest with ourselves about that. I mean, we threw around the topic of love conquers all, but really speaking to the idea, and this is in our conversation before the show, that love is always reduced to our level of understanding. And when you've created any level of justification in dehumanizing someone, then our love doesn't have to encompass them, and we can still see ourselves as helping and loving people.
Right.
So it's really being willing to own all the places that we have for our own ego tried to say, oh, I might be bad, but I'm not as bad as, or I might have done this, but it's not, and we've done this comparisonitis. I might not be racist, but I've done this to this. Like we start to create these comparisons.
Right.
And it's always going to be reduced to our level of understanding of what we've created humanity, what we feel is worthy of love.
Wow.
Where have pets been created or deemed more lovable in some subsectors of society?
Yeah.
Where have animals that we eat been deemed less lovable or less valuable from other animals in our society?
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of levels, both within the plant, the human, the animal world, where we've created some hierarchy, and every time that we start to make ourselves better than something else, our love has been reduced to that level of understanding that we've decided to own.
Right. No, I totally get it. There's levels, and that's, I've cheekily, or I don't know if that's a word or not, but I was like, this race conversation, it doesn't feel right because it feels like somebody's winning, right? And it's not me, right?
Yeah. I hope you don't feel that it's me.
Right. So it's like, I don't know who's winning, but it ain't me. So that's why I try to get out of this damn race conversation.
And yet we do need to continue to address it and not just be preaching to the choir of the people who agree with us.
Right. Absolutely.
And offering a space where people can hear these marginalized people speaking and look into their eyes and see their humanity, and no matter what,
No matter what. Yeah, I think that's where the solution lies. No matter what. No matter what.
I'm thankful that we can have this conversation. I'm thankful that we can have these conversations, and that I know that whenever I set out on a conversation with you, that we don't have to script it, because we're always going to have this mutual friendship and respect, and to be grateful for each other's wisdom and guidance, and to really be able to even look at words that, like help, that we would think are just such positive words, and then suddenly say, whoa, I even need to rethink this as a part of the race conversation.
Right.
Bring
wow.
it in.
Well, thank you very much. This has been another amazing time with you. Blessings, my friend.
Blessings. Thank you so much.